I ended my relationship with my girlfriend because she wanted to remain a virgin. Now, she wants to get back together, but she had sex with someone else during our breakup. I'm a 23-year-old male, and I met my ex-girlfriend, a 21-year-old female, 3 years ago. We lived on campus at the university in different residence halls. After a few months, we got together and, for the most part, had a happy relationship. However, there was always one issue: my ex grew up in a very religious household, as her father is a pastor. She had been open with her family about not sharing their faith. While they were unhappy about it, they accepted that she had to make her own choices. Still, I believe some of that religious upbringing lingered in her mind that I come from a different religious background but was never particularly serious about it, and I no longer identify as religious. Our relationship was quite normal, except she told me early on that she was a virgin and wanted to stay that way until marriage. This choice wasn't rooted in religious beliefs, she simply wanted to avoid disappointing her dad. We engaged in other sexual activities but never intercourse. I hadn't had much luck with girls growing up, and I was a virgin going into the relationship, still defining virginity as never having had intercourse. As time went on, I began to feel increasingly resentful. Everyone around me seemed to be having typical sexual relationships, while we weren't. I couldn't understand her reluctance to have a full sexual relationship, but I never pressured her about it. I felt that, as a broke university student, marriage was a distant thought. Last year, in my final year of university, she started her first professional job. Her degree was shorter than mine, so she graduated first, despite being younger. She often talked about the successful guys she met at work, which made me feel inadequate, especially since I was still a struggling student. Coupled with her continued reluctance for a full sexual relationship, I began to feel even more insecure. It definitely made me feel more resentful, and after some arguments, I decided to end the relationship since we wanted different things and our lives were heading in separate directions. It was awful, she cried a lot, and I felt terrible afterward. It's now been nearly 6 months since we broke up, and we haven't been in touch during most of that time. I haven't dated anyone else either, as I was completely focused on finishing my degree. I finally graduated and am about to start my first professional job. Recently, she reached out and asked to meet up. I was hesitant but figured our shared history was worth hearing her out. During our meeting, she told me she had missed me terribly and wanted to get back together, expressing that she was now open to a sexual relationship. When I asked why now, what had changed, she looked uncomfortable. After some prodding, she revealed that she had a short-term fling with one of the older guys at work while we were broken up. Although that was fine since we weren't together anymore, it hit me hard to hear. She mentioned he had been very persistent, and while she made it clear it was consensual, I couldn't help but feel gutted. I was left wondering why she'd made me wait all those years but was willing to be intimate with someone new after only a short time. When I asked if her willingness to have a sexual relationship now was because she was no longer a virgin, she admitted it was. I requested some space to process everything, as I felt conflicted and would appreciate some advice. I've missed her a lot and still have strong feelings for her, but it feels like I was strung along for years. Logically, everything seems to align for us to get back together, and the prospect of finally having a sexual relationship with her is tempting. However, I feel awful about the whole situation and don't want to ignore those feelings. Some comments I've seen have been harsh towards my ex, but that doesn't surprise me. People don't know her. She's not some evil, manipulative villain. I wouldn't have been with someone like that. She's still the funny, smart, charming, beautiful girl I've always known. Any guy would be lucky to have her, and I would be too, if I could handle the baggage involved. But I'm beginning to think that a clean break might be the best option. While she may regret her fling with the other man, that's not my concern, as we were broken up. Honestly, I wasn't expecting to hear from her again, so this situation has caught me off guard. I feel hurt, and I suppose this is a blow to my ego. I feel like the lesser man here. That I can acknowledge that, and it's something I need to work on. Ultimately, I have some hang-ups about sex from this relationship that I need to address. A few people have suggested I might benefit from therapy, and I'm planning to explore that option. I think I need help processing all the emotions surrounding this situation. A relevant question that has come up is why she was willing to sleep with this guy after such a short relationship but wasn't open to being intimate with me after 3 years. All she mentioned was that he was persistent, which leaves me confused. I'm torn between simply texting her to say I don't want to rekindle things and leaving the past behind, or asking more questions about what happened, because this really hurts. I'm not sure I'm ready to hear the details about her relationship with the other guy. Sometimes, I feel stunted in a way, and I realize that a few comments have called me immature, and they might be right. I know I'm the one who ended the relationship and that she's entitled to do what she wants, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. Perhaps it would be best to just say goodbye and move on. Update 1, hello again. I really appreciate everyone who took the time to comment on my last post. The response was much more than I expected, with over 2,000 comments, and I'm amazed that so many people wanted to weigh in on my situation. Thank you. Just a warning, this post is long. I've been keeping a daily journal since I was 16, so much of what follows is a reflection from that. Yes, I know I'm not being concise. I'll refer to my ex as Ellie, which isn't her real name. I'd like to share my thoughts on the comments because so many people took the time to express their views, and I appreciate it. The majority of comments advised me to move on and suggested a clean break, which has a lot of merit. A minority encouraged me to give her another chance and see how things go. However, I noticed quite a few comments calling me an asshole for ending the relationship because I wanted sex or for being fixated on her virginity. Some even suggested that my decision to break up made her feel like sex was necessary to keep a guy, which led her to seek comfort with someone else. There were a few comments suggesting that she might be pregnant, which, while not impossible, wouldn't involve me if it were true. Some guys have even suggested I should just use her and then leave her, but honestly, some of you really need a hug or a psychologist. I would never exploit her like that, regardless of our past. Ellie and I were a loving couple for years, and that counts for something. Even after we broke up, feeling hurt doesn't justify treating her or anyone else poorly. Regarding comments about my hang-up with her virginity, my real issue was that we weren't having sex in our relationship, not whether she was a virgin. Her choice to remain abstinent was her own, and while it was a significant factor, it wasn't the only concern for me. If she hadn't been a virgin but still wanted to be abstinent, I would have found myself in the same position. For 3 years, Ellie had everything she wanted: a boyfriend who loved her, provided affection, loyalty, support, and respected her wishes. Meanwhile, I was missing a crucial element, and there was no way to reconcile that. In hindsight, I should have ended the relationship when Ellie first told me she wanted to wait until marriage. I was a naive 19-year-old who had never had a girlfriend before, so I went along with her wishes because I really liked her and we got along well. I fell in love, but then I felt trapped in a relationship that wasn't what I truly wanted. I've learned from this experience and won't make the same mistake again. Moving forward, I want to make active choices in my relationships instead of passively going along with what the other person wants. Our views on sex in our relationship weren't compatible, so I chose to end it rather than prolonging things in the hope that she might change her mind. It was a scary decision, and I delayed it for too long because I didn't want to hurt her, but I couldn't stay in a relationship just for her sake. I also had to consider my own feelings in this situation. My mistake was waiting so long to reach this point, and I regret that because it caused her more pain than if I had ended things earlier. Many of you have said that sex isn't that important, but for me, it is a significant part of a relationship. That's okay if others feel differently. Some people are fine with no-sex relationships, and I respect that, but it's not what I want. Some took issue with me saying I felt strung along, and on reflection, that's fair. Ellie was clear about her desire to wait until marriage, and I foolishly held on too long, hoping she would change her mind. She never did, and that was my mistake. I really strung myself along. She never led me on. It hurt to learn that she had sex with the next guy relatively quickly after I waited so long, but she's my ex now, so it's not my business anymore. She's entitled to change her mind and can choose to have sex with whomever she wants. I don't have a say in that. My hurt is an emotional response, not a logical one. Logically, I know she didn't do anything wrong, and I'll get over it. It's just my bruised ego speaking, feeling like a lesser man because she took that step with someone else. I know that objectively, this isn't true, but it's hard to shake that feeling. I wasn't a perfect boyfriend and I've made my share of mistakes. However, I don't regret breaking up with Ellie. I still believe it was the right decision for me. Now, to provide some background, last weekend was the Australia Day long weekend, and I went on a camping trip to the Grampians. For any Aussies reading, it was a wonderful opportunity to reconnect with nature, go on some bush walks with friends, and decompress. It felt good to talk about the Ellie situation around the campfire with my mates, most of whom knew her well from our years together. They had a variety of opinions, much like the commenters on my post, and I got the usual good-natured ribbing about still being a virgin. I found out my friends had a special bottle of expensive scotch that they had been saving to open when I joined them. During our time together, one of them asked me an interesting question: would I have ever reached out to Ellie to take her back if she hadn't contacted me first? The answer, without hesitation, was no. That realization brought a lot into focus for me. I understood then that I had been far too passive throughout this situation. It became clear that I needed to concentrate on what I truly wanted, rather than just reacting to Ellie's desires. By the time I was driving home, I had already made up my mind that I wouldn't get back together with her. However, that decision quickly became irrelevant when I finally regained mobile service after our camping trip. A flood of messages from Ellie came through all at once. She confessed that asking to rekindle things between us had been a mistake, and she admitted she was now back with Tim. She also revealed that her relationship with him was more serious than she had initially led me to believe when we last met. This hit me hard, especially because she had downplayed it as just a fling before asking to meet up. Feeling misled and frustrated, I replied with a simple, no. It wasn't my finest moment, but I had no interest in discussing it any further, particularly after realizing she had lied to me. It felt out of character for her. She tried calling afterward, but I ignored it. Soon after, she sent another message, saying, "Tim and I had a fight. I shouldn't have come to you, and I'm sorry." When I got home, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to look up Tim online. His name is quite distinctive, so it didn't take long to find him. I came across his LinkedIn profile, where Ellie was listed as one of his connections. He works at the same firm as her and holds a director-level position, just a step away from being a partner. His Instagram was filled with photos of his travels, flaunting different events and exotic destinations. Along with those photos of him in different places, there were also shots of him with an expensive-looking car, and a few pictures of him with Ellie, their arms around each other in Singapore back in November. I guess that confirmed it was serious. He wouldn't have public photos with her if it was just a casual fling. Seeing all of that only made me feel worse. No good comes from comparing myself to my ex's successful new boyfriend. Ellie isn't my girlfriend anymore, and I'm not in competition with Tim. I realized it was pointless to go down that path again, but my ego was bruised enough already. I've been living a very frugal life while at university, aka living pretty much as a poor student, so I know how easy it is for me to feel inferior when I see people with wealth. That's another issue I'll have to deal with eventually. Anyway, all of that happened on Sunday afternoon and evening. By Tuesday night, Ellie showed up at my door. She said she knew I didn't want to talk to her, but she felt really bad about everything that had happened and hoped I'd let her explain herself and clear the air. She added that I'd never have to see her again if that's what I wanted afterward. Reluctantly, I let her in. I wasn't happy about recent events, but I figured I could at least get some clarity on what was going on. What followed was a long and heavy conversation that stretched over 4 hours, but here's the gist of what I remember. After we broke up, she was devastated. She said it took her a couple of months to start feeling better, and during that time, she missed me constantly. She had wanted to see me throughout, but we had both agreed to keep our distance and give each other space to heal. In September, she met Tim at work. He manages a different team, so she doesn't report to him. According to Ellie, he was very charming, attractive, and took an interest in her almost immediately. They started getting to know each other, and eventually, he asked her out. She admitted she was worried it might be a rebound, but his attention made her feel so much better that she went along with it. After dating for a while, she developed feelings for him, which led to them having a sexual relationship. It wasn't just a fling, they had been seeing each other for some time before that I brought up the fact that last time we spoke, she had said Tim was very persistent about wanting to have sex, and I asked if he had pressured her into it. She admitted that she had said that because she was trying to avoid upsetting me. Ellie explained that she thought if she made it sound like she was reluctant to sleep with Tim, I wouldn't think as badly of her. So, in the end, she had lied to spare my feelings. I told her that, if anything, her story made me worried that she had been assaulted. She seemed genuinely shocked by that and quickly reassured me that wasn't the case. If anything, she had been the one to initiate the sexual relationship. I told her that, while I didn't like that she had lied to me, I understood her reasons, that I understand why she changed her mind about abstinence, and I don't think she did anything wrong. Yes, I was hurt when she told me she was having sex, but I have no right to judge her for that. She's a single adult, and it's her life. I don't think badly of her at all. When I said this, she burst into tears and said something like, "I thought you must hate me now." I reassured her that I didn't. She then said she was sad that things didn't work out between us, but she never would have given up her commitment to staying a virgin if we hadn't broken up. After the breakup, she decided that it was a promise she made to her dad when she was just a kid, and it no longer reflected the life she wanted now. So by the time she and Tim got into their relationship, she had already made the decision that she was ready for sex with the right person. That I asked her about her dad, and she just said, "He doesn't need to know." Then I asked why she had wanted to get back together with me. She explained that Tim is older, he's 32 and has been at the firm for 10 years. One day at work, one of the women made a snarky comment to Ellie about being another one of Tim's girls. Ellie did some digging and found out that Tim has a history. He's dated quite a few women from the office, many of them young graduate employees like her. The rumor going around was that Ellie was just the next girl to be used by him. She was horrified and accused him of using her. They argued, and she told him it was over. Soon after that, she came to me. She thought we might be able to rekindle things, especially now that she was open to a sexual relationship. But after some time to calm down and reflect, she realized that coming to me was a mistake. Over the weekend, Tim asked her to work things out, and she decided to give it another chance. She tried calling me, but the calls went to voicemail since I was camping, so she sent those texts instead. So, I guess that's settled. I don't want her back, and she's in a relationship now, so she doesn't want me back either. We chatted a bit about how our families were doing. She congratulated me on finally finishing university. She also asked if I'd been seeing anyone, and when I told her I'd been focused on studying and working a retail job with no time for dating, she laughed and said, "You're still a big nerd." She hoped we could stay friendly if we ever bumped into each other, but said she wants to keep out of contact for now, out of respect for her relationship with Tim. She wants to give it a real chance of working, which I thought was fair. Before she left, she gave me a hug, thanked me for understanding, and said goodbye. So, that's that. Ellie involved me in her relationship drama, which I would have preferred she hadn't, but at least everything is sorted now. That I'm glad I paid attention to my feelings and took the time to think things through. It could have gotten really messy if I had taken her back. Trusting my gut has been the biggest lesson for me in all of this. I still care for Ellie despite everything that's happened recently. It seems like she's dealing with a lot of complicated things between her new relationship and the office gossip. I genuinely wish her well and hope she finds happiness, whether it's with Tim or not. She was my first love, and I'll probably always have fond memories of her. But I'm clear now, I don't want her back. She's part of my past, and I'm focused on the future. Well, this has turned into quite an essay. My tutors at university always told me I was too wordy in my writing. Well, screw them. I'm not a student anymore. Now I can focus on launching my career without distractions. I've worked so hard for so long to get to this point. My new job starts on Monday, and I'm excited to finally build real-world experience in my profession, not just deal with endless theory. Plus, I'll be earning much better money, no more living the poor student life. I've got graduation in May to look forward to as well. As for finding someone new, I'm open to it, but it's not a priority for me right now. I'm not going to actively pursue that anytime soon. Reflecting on Ellie's changes, I came to terms with the end of our relationship months ago. When she came back into my life, it stirred up some old feelings, but now I realize that was more an echo of memories than real emotions. All this recent drama was of her own making. Honestly, I would have preferred if she hadn't involved me at all so I could have stayed blissfully unaware of her romantic life. I don't need to know about her rich boyfriend or their sex life. She's definitely changed. The Ellie I remember was scrupulously honest, almost to a fault. But the Ellie I've dealt with recently, she's not quite the same person. I think that's why her lying to me upset me so much. It wasn't just the fact that she lied, it felt completely out of character for her. But people change. She's in the business world now, and people there live by different standards compared to the religious family she grew up in. Anyway, I've cut myself out of her life, so whatever happens with her is her business to handle. If she tries to come back, I'll remind her that we agreed to stay apart and leave it at that. I'm not looking for another relationship right now, so no Tinder for me, and no casual sex either. I'm still a virgin, but I want something meaningful, not just sex. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm open to something if the right woman comes along, but I'm not actively seeking it. Maybe that will change in the future, but for now, I want to stay focused on my new career. Regarding closure, a lot of the comments on this thread suggest that the final meeting was only for her benefit. Sure, she got some kind of relief or closure from it, but it was good for me too. Seeing who she's becoming made me 100% certain that we wouldn't work out. She's changed a lot over the last year, starting even when we were still together and she had just started her job. Random phrases like work hard, play hard, and generally being less kind and more dismissive of others, it's clear that her environment influenced her, but she chose to adopt those behaviors. I love the old Ellie, but I'm not sure I even like the current version of her. Regardless, I didn't feel like she intruded. Instead, it felt like I got a clean, neat ending to everything, and now I can move on with my life with a clear conscience. We've both made it clear that it's over for good, and she's promised to stay out of contact. If she ever tries to come back, I'll remind her of her own promise and close the door for good. Update 2, if you remember from my previous posts, Ellie and I mutually agreed to go no contact after some drama on her part. At the urging of Redditors, I also blocked Ellie to help maintain no contact. Since February, I've been working as a graduate engineer, and it's been everything I hoped for. I'm meeting brilliant people, learning so much every day, and finally earning a salary after years of being a broke student. Having some money in the bank and being able to afford little luxuries like eating out has been such a nice change. When I finished university in November, I moved in with my brother temporarily. He had just broken up with his ex and needed help with the rent, so that's where I was living when Ellie last came to see me. Eventually, my brother found a new housemate, and since his place was on the wrong side of the CBD for my job, I moved into a shared house in the southeast of Melbourne. The place is a bit run down, but by Melbourne's insane standards, the rent is reasonable, and the area is full of pubs, bars, and restaurants. My housemates and the location have been great. Now, I'm seeing someone. I'll call her Olivia, not her real name. She's the sister of one of my housemates. We met when my housemates and I had a barbecue, and she dropped by. We started talking and were still deep in conversation hours later, even after everyone else had left. Her brother eventually told us to shut up so he could get some sleep. I asked her out that same week, and we've been close ever since. Her brother, my housemate, has been making fun of us ever since, including more than a few crude jokes when she stays over. We agreed to be exclusive about 6 weeks ago, so it's still pretty new. Olivia is so cool, smart, and gorgeous, and the chemistry between us was instant and intense from the moment we met. We just click so well, and it's always a great time when we're together. She works as an accountant at a big firm. Last month, one of her workmates was having a party, and Olivia asked me to come along to meet some of her friends. We went inside, and she introduced me to Jess, the woman hosting the party. There were probably around 40 or 50 people there, and I didn't know anyone except Olivia. At one point, I offered to grab more drinks. The kitchen was in a separate room, so I headed there to get them. While I was in the kitchen getting drinks, a guy asked me to pass him a beer from the fridge. I introduced myself, and he replied, "Hi, I'm Tim." We chatted for a couple of minutes about our jobs and how we knew Jess. After some small talk, I said, "Nice to meet you," and returned to the group. I didn't recognize his face since I had never met him before, but it was definitely Ellie's Tim. His job and the firm he mentioned matched up, and he looked to be in his 30s, older than most of the people at the party. Neither of us brought up Ellie during our conversation. Later on, I asked Jess how she knew Tim. She mentioned that she used to work at the same firm as him, which is also where Ellie works, but she has since moved to the company where Olivia works. Despite living in a city of 5 million people, it still feels like a small world sometimes. On the tram ride home, I was quiet, and Olivia noticed. She asked what was on my mind. I told her that the Tim guy at the party was, or maybe still is, my ex's boyfriend. I added that I didn't think he recognized me, or, if he did, he didn't say anything. That prompted me to share some history about me and Ellie. Olivia was wide-eyed and said, "You never told me you were a virgin." Then she laughed and added, "Well, we took care of that." She asked if I had any lingering feelings for Ellie, and I truthfully told her no. I'd dealt with all of that months ago. More recently, Olivia invited me to a formal charity dinner that her employer was sponsoring. She was excited to show me off. We sat at a table with some of her work colleagues, who were all nice people. One of her friends couldn't stop talking about how excited she was to meet me, which made me feel really good. After dinner, a few of us were chatting when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around, and to my surprise, it was Ellie, and Tim was with her. It was surreal to see her again. Tim mentioned that he remembered meeting me at the party, but he hadn't made the connection to Ellie until just now. She must have told him about me. Ellie looked very different from the last time I'd seen her. She had lost a lot of weight and was very slim. The tight red dress she wore made that clear. Not that she was ever overweight, but I had never seen her that thin before. She was also immaculately made up, wearing what looked like expensive jewelry to my untrained eye. She had also changed her hair. It was now blonde instead of her natural auburn. Ellie looked like a sleek, wealthy woman, a far cry from the poor pastor's daughter I remembered. Don't get me wrong, she looked amazing, but she was almost unrecognizable. I knew it was a formal event, and we were all dressed nicely, but this was a significant transformation. Despite her glamorous appearance, when I saw her, I didn't feel anything, just emptiness. Ellie smiled and said she was so glad to see me. Then she held out her hand to show off a diamond engagement ring. I didn't know much about diamonds, but it looked pretty big and expensive to me. I offered my congratulations to both her and Tim just as Olivia walked back over. I introduced her to Ellie and Tim, and as Olivia put her arm around me, Ellie's smile seemed to freeze. Not knowing what else to say, I simply wished them the best for their upcoming wedding. Tim walked off, leaving Ellie standing there for a moment. The situation felt awkward. Later, as we were leaving, I noticed Ellie staring at us. Once we were outside, Olivia remarked, "I think she still has a thing for you." I shrugged, telling her it didn't matter. Fast forward to a few days ago, my brother messaged me, saying Ellie had stopped by looking for me. Yes, Reddit, you were right, he knew better than to share my new address with her. All he told her was that I had moved out. The next day, I received an email from an address I hadn't seen before. It was Ellie. She didn't acknowledge that she was breaking our agreement to be no contact or mention that she had stopped by my old place. Instead, she wrote, "It was so great to see you again. I've missed you, and that girl you were with is pretty. How serious is it?" She went on to tell me that she and Tim had big plans for their wedding next year and hoped I could come. I felt annoyed. She was trying to make her life my business again, despite promising no contact. She even went to the trouble of creating a new email address just to get around my blocking her. I showed Olivia the email, and she rolled her eyes, asking me to think about why my ex would send me that. Why indeed? Olivia has a knack for cutting through the noise and reading people better than I can. Ellie can't have me back. I'm in a relationship now, plus she's engaged. It's not like I would go to their wedding. Who goes to their ex's wedding? That wouldn't be right. That I can only guess what she wants. Maybe she's looking for emotional support again, or perhaps things are rocky with Tim. Whatever it is, it's not happening. She has family and friends, she can talk to them. I deleted the email and blocked the address without replying. Ellie promised she'd keep out of contact, and yet here she is, unable to help herself. That I still intend to honor our agreement of no contact, even if she can't. I've also set up a filter to send any email containing her name straight to the bin. Afterward, Olivia and I talked about it. I asked if she was concerned about the Ellie situation, but she said no. She didn't get any serial killer vibes from Ellie, which was reassuring. I'm glad none of this has put her off me. So, nothing too dramatic has happened, but it does prove you all were right. Ellie couldn't resist contacting me, despite promising not to. I was able to sidestep her much more easily this time. Ultimately, this is a good news story. Life is fantastic right now. I've got a cool new girlfriend, a fun place to live, and a new career that I love. Leaving Ellie behind has been surprisingly easy. Thank you for following along with my journey. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more real-life stories happening around you.